Here at Bent Image Lab, we had the great opportunity to reimagine the classic, beloved, special Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as a 4D experience. Much of what we did was invent new scenes and exciting moments that would take advantage of the possibilities of the 4D technology. Just like the original, it's all animated using the stop-motion technique. Our studio started doing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer type of work. We kind of got to be known as the keepers of the style.
Oh!
Not bad.
4D is a kind of an experiential attraction film. In addition to it being in 3D, the 4D part of it is there's these other sensory experiences such as chairs that vibrate, wind, fake snow, odors, this and that.
Stop motion animation has this certain believability and certain accessibility to people.
I think the appeal of stop motion is that it is very much made and animated by hand.
Ready, Santa?
Being sort of patient and detail-oriented are good qualities to have.
Clean up this mess or you're fired!
I've been prepping for this job my whole life.
This is one of the coolest things we've ever worked with.
In animation, most of your editing is done up front. Typically what you'll do is build a kind of roadmap that is storyboards, and they're turned into an animatic, which will give you a sense of timing, and you've worked out very carefully what these characters look like. Once the animatic is done, our puppet makers and set fabricators build everything based on very specific guidelines in order to match the original Rudolph.
We're trapped!
I think the biggest challenge is really getting those models, those characters to look right. Beginning with sculpting a character's head,
Ready, Rudolph?
building the bodies, making all the little costuming. The whole world knows what the Rudolph characters look like.
If you look at the original and you look at this, it's an identical match.
It's Yukon Cornelius!
Ta-da!
Once the lighting, camera, sets, and puppets are all in place, that's when the animation starts. Stop motion is probably the most time-involved form of animation and filmmaking in general. We had about 12 animators on different sets.
It really is like a stage play in slow motion, frame at a time.
Depending on the shot, you may only get a few seconds a day.
The key animator works with the director and finds out what's happening in a particular shot, then is responsible for animating the characters.
I don't have to be as good an animator or be as good a photographer, but I need to know what they're doing and how to guide them to get what I envision for the project.
The director does all of the coaching and walkthrough and blocking and test, and then you just have to leave the animator alone, and it's a straight-through performance.
Didn't I ever tell you? Bumbles bounce!
Talented animators will give you things that you didn't even imagine would be in there.
Sometimes it's the imperfections. If you see a piece of fabric or you see a character, maybe you see a little bit of a fingerprint on it or something that brings it into reality, brings it into something that's being worked on by hand. I think the work that Rankin Bass did in the 60s is kind of a point where things changed, and so a lot of people who work in stop motion today or have since then, that's a point of reference.
The animation for its time was outstanding.
It was really revolutionary. When it initially aired, it blew people's minds.
I think we're able to create much smoother animation today. That is largely due to the tools that we have. Today they have ways of recording things digitally so an animator can see where they are in the course of building a shot.
We can flip back and forth between what the camera's seeing live and then the last frame shot. So it makes it a lot easier to sort of toggle back and forth and go to the next one.
And you'll often hear when you're on set, the sound is click, 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 and that's the sound of animation happening in stop motion.
Yes, we incorporate computer software and digital cameras and cutting-edge technology, but part of it really comes down to moving a character a little bit and taking a frame. Part of it hasn't changed that much at all.
But you went over the side of the cliff!
There's an armature, which is the skeleton that has joints in it, and that's what we use to get the different positions. And this is silicone, and inside his hands, there's wire.
When you have a scene with several characters in it, typically it's just one animator on set.
After practice, would you walk home with me?
In the wider shots, I'm having to animate maybe 4 or 5 of the reindeer at a time.
Are you okay?
Luckily, we have software now, so that helps us keep track.
Ooh,
Once the animation starts, there's just something really magical about seeing these characters living and breathing.
We have always wanted it to just feel like those characters has always existed,
Put her down!
and to make sure that anything we did with them was kind of in keeping with their nature. We're all in love with the characters in the first place.
Getting to animate Rudolph, I just felt like it was a privilege because he's such an iconic character.
I'll find them all!
I think Bumble and Yukon Cornelius are probably my favorite ones to see animated and watch.
In person?
Everybody loves the Bumble. Everybody knows who he is, too.
In the show, he's not so fun. But at the end, he kind of gets very endearing.
Impressive!
He's almost like a teddy bear.
He's very hard to animate because he's a big puppet.
The characters have foam rubber on the inside, so you're moving a lot more mass.
I always love when an animator captures that character.
Both Shell and I have this deep-seated interest in keeping the characters authentic
It's all for one and one for all.
and being very, very true to what Rankin Bass did.
Oink, oink, oink.
In stop motion, you kind of use all the techniques that were available. We did do some pretty interesting things that were really fun. For instance, when the Bumble's chasing the sleigh, we created an old-time wheel set where the set's actually on a cylinder, and the cylinder is slowly turning as the characters are running. Very reminiscent of what would have been done, you know, in the 50s or 60s.
The tricky part of it is you're not just making something. You're making something that needs to look exactly like the original.
You can look at all of the very unique and small things and see that we've tried to be as close to the original as we could. I have no idea how they made their snow, but I sat down for hours and hours mixing snow formulas until it broke exactly the way it broke when Sam came down the hill. You can see him pushing, and you watch the front edge, and you see that snow break, 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 break. And again, complete observation. One of the things that was kind of fun about the 4D movies, we got to see them actually fall off the cliff.
Didn't I ever tell you? Bumbles bounce.
Yukon!
It's fun to add things that weren't in the original. Rankin Bass did a very good job at creating environments and sort of a vision for a world that seemed to be its own world.
A lot of it was really stylized, really fanciful, cartoony art direction. It's perfect for Christmas because you're in that world of toys coming to life.
When I adapted the story, I really wanted to stay very, very true to the original.
I just don't like to make toys.
It is such a great story. It's one of the great television screenplays I think ever written. The themes that are in the original Rudolph are timeless. They're as relevant today as they were back then.
I'll never fit in.
It is such a classic hero's journey.
It's like every kid that felt left out.
Crying out loud!
Generally speaking, everybody likes Rudolph.
He's like the guy that wants to fit in so badly.
Look at the beak! Nice schnoz!
He's subject to ridicule,
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer!
prejudice,
No more reindeer games for you!
bad weather, and a snow monster. And somehow he comes through it all,
He realizes I am what I am.
and in a selfless way, he's able to save Christmas. We, as viewers, have an enormous amount of empathy for his struggle. It is important to preserve the Rankin and Bass project and to pay homage to them.
They were pioneers.
They're really good at character development, character design, and storytelling.
Open up.
Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?
I'm old enough to have seen the original first airing of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Rudolph came into the mainstream in a way that nothing else had as far as stop motion.
I grew up watching the show, and I can quote the lines verbatim.
Rudolph really was the big one.
Yeah!
And it really makes you appreciate the story, the characters, and the music.
I feel indebted to those guys. I've been able to pursue my dream of being a stop-motion animator in part because of what they did.
I really gravitated to that stop motion form, and I think part of it was just bringing toys to life.
Wahoo!
Basically, we play with dolls for a living.
That actually really was part of the appeal of it, to take something that people really love so much and something that is yearly tradition and update it.
I'm home.
Have it accessible to the kids today and then future generations.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you'll go down in history.